Ballina Municipal District, and we're also honoured to have Seamus Caulfield with us here in the room as well. And Seamus, Professor Seamus Caulfield needs no introduction locally. He's been an instrumental part to play in the project that we've been working on over the last 2 years. I want to welcome my own team as well. They're here. Some of them are online and some of them are here in the room. Michelle Colleen is here with us in the room, and Claire McLaughlin, Claire Raftery and Claire Murray are also online with us. All of them have played an instrumental part in getting the preparation ready for today's event. I'm going to just briefly show you the agenda. I'll do a brief project introduction and set some context for the day and give you an overview of the project that we've done. I'm also going to introduce the other speakers as they come up. We're fortunate and honoured that we have pretty much all of our partners here today present with us. Thankfully, we've moved somewhat away from the online presence that we've all had over the last 2 years. There's one slight adjustment to the agenda, which was due to unforeseen circumstances. Joan Condell is unable to be with us in person, but she is online, and she does send us our apologies. The other apologies I have for the day as well is Councillor Michael Loftus is unable to be with us due to unforeseen circumstances in the day job. I'd also like to welcome Christopher Parker, who's online with us. I believe, Christopher, hope you can hear us and see us okay. Christopher is the Programme Manager for Project Development with the Northern Periphery and Arctic region, Secretariat based out of Copenhagen. But we're also fortunate to have Christopher as our desk officer for this project. And we thank you, Christopher, for your help and support to date. And we're very grateful. Moving swiftly on, I will introduce each of the speakers as they come up. That's just a kind of a summary of the people that are going to speak, but I will introduce them as they join us at the podium here over the course of the morning. The other part of the agenda that is not online today is a on-site tour with Professor Caulfield after the event is officially finished here in Ballycastle. We'll be moving to Downpatrick Head. So those of you that are here in the room are welcome to join us for that. And I think that's going to be one of the highlights of the day as far as I'm concerned, because I've had the privilege of having that tour before, and it gets better every time I have it. So just to talk briefly about our project, over the past 2 years, we have had some setbacks due to the big C. That doesn't need any more attention than it's already got. So our project is connecting with emerging digital technologies and changing digital literacies is key to re-energizing our towns, villages and communities. Project Stratus is using disruptive technologies like VR to enable exploration of the past, present and future, maximizing the social benefits in a natural, cultural and natural heritage setting. Essentially, what we're doing is we're trying to tell the story, the many stories of that have been told over the ages of history at Downpatrick Head, and we're using VR, virtual reality, to do that. And we hope also to enhance the visitor experience in a new way. And it's not to say that the visitor experience in person is not a good one. It actually it's very good, and it has grown and grown over the years. And it'll look to promote economic growth as well in a virtual context. So if somebody sees this online, then there may be an opportunity, or it might encourage people to come and see it in real life. We're looking to push the limits of VR in a culture and heritage setting, and I think Downpatrick Head is a very good fit for that. Or we felt that along the journey. The location itself needs no introduction for the people that are here with us in the room, but for those of you that are online, as I said, west coast of Ireland, one of the most northerly points of Mayo, and some of the images you'll see during the course of the morning will give you some dramatic insight into the landscape that has been cut out there over the centuries, and Seamus will go into that in detail when we do the on-site tour. Some of the outputs from the project that we have kind of targeted, I guess. Obviously, stakeholder engagement is key to the success of any project. And as I said, part of that is the virtual tour of Downpatrick Head. Tell the story of the history, the geology, the geomorphology, the French landing, 1798, the many stories of World War II, and obviously there's the mythology side of it as well, around St. Patrick and that story. So when you visit the site, maybe for the first time down there, maybe that you don't get a sense that these stories are being told as well as they may be. So what we're doing is we're endeavouring to complement that and get those stories told and give Downpatrick Head a new meaning to people who mightn't ordinarily know what the history is. And out of that, we hope to produce a prototype and a toolkit with best practice guidelines to go with it in a VR setting. So these are just some of the screenshots from the virtual reality. And again, there'll be an opportunity in a while for those present here in the room to try on the Oculus headsets and have a look at this and feel like you're down on the site in Downpatrick Head. These images are only a snippet of what you will experience in the online Oculus headset. So again, dramatic VR 3D construction, photogrammetry with information points, and it's as near to reality as you can actually get in a virtual sense. And I won't do it justice by showing still images of it until you see the virtual reality part in a while. So in a wider context, I suppose this project and the work we're doing on this project it's a collaborative approach in a culture and heritage setting. And we're looking to showcase this site and other similar sites locally, nationally, and internationally. And we'll look to connect virtual worlds across the MPA region and showcase them to the various countries that might, have a common theme around creating a viewpoint or a window into history across the MPA region. And that's one of the big targets or one of the big outputs that we have from this project. It's not just a standalone, there's a much wider context to it. It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the partner support, particularly the people of Ballycastle and the business of Ballycastle. Fáilte Ireland have been instrumental as well in their support of this project, and not just the support of the project, but also the brainchild behind the Wild Atlantic Way concept, which is a fundamental part of putting places like Downpatrick Head on the map across Ireland and beyond. As I said, the support of the Ballina Municipal District and indeed the support of the local and national elected members. There's what we call the Coola 360 tour. I'm going to leave that on screen for the benefit of the online viewers. If you want to play with the technology, feel free to scan that QR code and jump back into the what we call the Coola 360 tour. It'll be an opportunity for you to see it for the first time outside of the group. Absolutely feel free also to give us feedback. You'll see some contact details coming up shortly. If there's anything in there that you like or maybe dislike, just let us know. We'd welcome any feedback that we can get on it. Again, these are our contact details, and feel free to share, reshare, give us some feedback. All the engagement we can get is most welcome. And thank you for your time, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to showcase this. I'm going to leave the questions. I should have said this at the outset, but I'm going to leave some of the questions maybe to the end of each of the presentations. If there is any, I know some of the speakers in a while don't have any issue being interrupted. Those of you that are online, please feel free to pop a question in the chat. We'd be happy to throw it out to the room here or any of the speakers that you wish to have the question answered. That's no problem at all. Our next speaker is Scully Bjorn Gunnarsson. He's the managing director of the Gunnar Gunnarsson Institute in Iceland. For 2 decades, he's been in charge of building up remote centre and various exhibition and cultural activities. He has a long-term experience in editorial work and writing, along with project management. He has a personal interest in digital innovation and how new technology can preserve and present cultural heritage. And we're very honoured to have Scully with us here in the room today. And a big round of applause for Scully. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you for this beautiful, bright morning here in Mayo County in Newcastle. And I'm very pleased to be here finally, because this project has not made us, well, the times have not made us able to travel so much. So for 1.5 years, we have been collaborating here in the Stratus project without, well, this is my first visit here to the Mayo for this project. But I'm here to tell you a little bit about what we are working on to continue, maybe we can say, with all this work. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about another project that is ongoing, which is called 5, and Stratus is one of the projects that were clustered under that. It's also an NPA project, and we are, one of the main things that we want to do with that is to build a network in the NPA area for virtual heritage collaboration. But so what does the 5 stand for? It stands for Promoting Heritage in Virtual Environments, and it is one of these small clustered projects that were started last year, actually, under the program, and we seek to disseminate all the outputs from well, few big and small projects, and along with that is the Stratus project. So many of us that are working in Stratus and as well in this 5 project, we started our collaboration under a 3 years project called SINA, which actually finished in the end of 2020 and was an NPA project. Then we know, yeah, Danny has told you all about the Stratus project that is ongoing. Ulster University had a nice little project, Tech Zones, which was a kind of a COVID response project sponsored by or funded by the NPA program. Then it's the Cubido project that you will hear a bit more about from Alan Miller afterwards, and that was an North region project. It ends in, well, the final conference of that is in June in Scotland, and the ULAC project is then on Horizon 2020 project that is finished, but it was also something that the University of St. Andrews was a driving force in. So we are finishing the Stratus project and the 5 project as well in the end of June this year. So yeah, so we have a few months still to go. All the partners, as I say, they are coming. We have partners in the 5 project from Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Norway. And then we have associated partners that followed us into the 5 project with from the other projects from a wide range. And so the consortium in the 5 project, we can say, is quite big, and also it covers much, well, it goes beyond the NPA area, definitely, as you can see on this map, which shows the partners and associated partners in this project. So we hope we think we have a good pool of knowledge and partners to actually be able to build the network that we like so much to do. But I want to go a bit, tell you a little bit about my place, the cultural center that I'm running and has been for the last 2 decades, as Danny told you. And it is in the east of Iceland. It's really, yeah, it's exactly in the remote and sparsely populated areas, as is defined by the NPA project. So this beautiful mansion there that you can see was built in 1939 by the famous Icelandic writer Gunnar Gunnarsson. So in this house we have exhibitions about the writer, and also then about the 16th century monastery, which is nearby as ruins. And you also have a good cafe. So this is a popular place and it's a tourist attraction and has been for decades. And we get some tens of thousands of visitors, of course, mainly in the summer, as you know, is the prime time here on the west coast of Ireland as well as the east coast of Iceland. But there you can see the ruins of this monastery and the beautiful valley of Fljótsdalur. And of course, the heritage landscape is all around us there in Iceland, just as here in Ireland. And if we go a few decades back, then we have this aerial photograph from 1955. And you can see the building that Gunnar Gunnarsson built there in 39 on it. But you can also see there a small cemetery with the ruins of a small church, which was all what was visible of the old monastery. And well, actually, we didn't know that was the real place at that time. So in the year 2000, when we opened the cultural center as a new kind of a museum, then we also started to think more about the history of the site, and we found out that this ruins, this cemetery and the ruins of a small church had a lot more history. So then we started the excavation, and it took us 10 years to totally excavate the site. And as you can see, the most part of the buildings of the monastery, they were just in the field there. This is just a meadow for haymaking. And so they were just there outside of the cemetery and just 1 feet under, but totally forgotten. So that is how it is with the past. It's often very close to us, but totally forgotten. And then this is how the ruins look now, because when we had finished the excavation, we also wanted to make it attractive for tourists and accessible. So we built the foundation of it in a way, so it's reconstructed the walls, so they are about feet high there. And here you can see some of the things. But in the Sinne project, Skriðuklaustur was a case study. So I just want to tell you how that has actually helped us a lot to step into the virtual world and communicate the past of the monastery at Skriðuklaustur in new ways, and in ways that had not so much been done before that in Iceland. So our good partners in St. Andrews, they helped us to reconstruct and build a 3D model of the monastic buildings. That was, of course, based on evidences that we got from the excavation and then other knowledge, but we actually don't know so much about how the construction of these buildings were at that time. Our building material in Iceland is mainly turf and stone, and the turf disappears and the stones are reused. So that was, but the foundation we had there from the excavation. But this reconstruction was then put into Unreal Engine, and visitors at Skriðuklaustur have for the last 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years, been able to go into the past by putting on Oculus headsets and walk around in the buildings, or even fly around if they choose to do that. And you will be able to try that out here. We have that virtual reality with us. And but those of you who are online, you just have to come to Skriðuklaustur. And it's not, people often think it's just for the younger generation, that they are excited to try all this new technology because they are brought up with it. But that's not the case from our experience. It's also the older people that is really, really excited and enjoys. I remember having some people over 80 and they spent, well, almost an hour on the virtual reality. They just wanted to see everything in it. So that is from our room there at Skriðuklaustur, and can be quite nice and good atmosphere there with families, for example. But back to the 5 project. The virtual, we have 3 pillars. We have defined this as a 3-pillar project. So we are building this virtual center of excellence, virtual time travel demonstrations, and virtual museum and exhibition system. And so in it, we have, well, under virtual center of excellence, we actually are working on how to use virtual reality and AR to promote and preserve heritage in this post-COVID times. And on the small video there, you can see a demonstration of how we are using AR at Skriðuklaustur in the exhibition about the monastery, where we have the model appearing in a smartphone or a tablet. And this in the 5 project, we are trying to engage with users through exhibits and workshops. And so this event here today in the Stratus project is a part of that in a way. And under this work package, we are also building the Northern Network for Digital Promotion and Preservation of Heritage. So we are gathering contacts and trying to build the consortium even further. Virtual time travel demonstration is another pillar, and that is, of course, we have to have some technology behind all this and some frameworks to work with the past and give some live exploration of the past. And then we also need to have some content for it. So it's very, very important to have and work with that. And this map there shows you East Iceland and all the farms and land that the monastery owned in the 16th century. So that's quite a bit of land and many farms, both inland and also by the seaside, which is exactly what is interesting about it. And we have been in the Stratus project, in the Cine project, and also in the 5 project, we are working on the dissemination of this. We have been collecting visual content for all this history. And you have there an example from one of the fjords in the east, which is actually almost deserted. There are some 20, 30 persons living in this fjord the whole year, and you cannot only reach it by boat in the winter time. And this is an old farm there that was, it was deserted there in early 20th century. And so we have there some remains that we can see from the drone images and footages, and then we do also 360 images of this. And we are building a Kula tour around the whole east of Iceland to give people the chance to have a virtual travel to all these places. Then it's the virtual museum and exhibition system, a repository for all these items. Alan Miller will tell you more about the repository afterwards, and but we have to have a really good repository to build something that we would like to call the Virtual Museum of the North, and it is so important from my point of view to have to give people access to this to our artifacts when we have made digital replicas of them. And so this skull, or a part of a skull, is from the excavation at the monastery at Skriðuklaustur, and we opened 300 graves there. There are some marks there on it from, we don't know, maybe from a sword, or maybe just from a spade, from a fighting in the garden. But at least when we have this skull put out on to the whole world through Sketchfab and then through other systems like Europeana and then hopefully in the future the Virtual Museum of the North. Then people have access to it, not only researchers, but also, and what I think is not less important, people that are just looking for something that they create from, that they can create from. So a writer could, for example, see the skull and the mark there from the sharp blade or sword, and okay, maybe there was someone from the Crusades buried there in the garden, in the cemetery at the monastery in Iceland. So that is also, we have to do things, open access to our heritage items to keep the heritage alive and have people build some creative things from it. In the FIRE project, these are the specific objects, the Northern Network, and then, of course, promoting all this engagement that we have and build the capacity. And we are doing that all the time, and we have been, but it will all finish with a final conference, a hybrid conference in Reykjavik in Iceland on the 16th of June. So, and there we will establish the network, and we will have a whole day of a good conference where we have keynote speakers and also sessions on topics like virtual reality and digital reconstructions, immersive storytelling and game-based approach to heritage, digital preservation, community engagement and crowdsourcing, virtual museums, virtual tours and tourism. This deadline for sending in proposals for presentations there is today, but we will put a new date in. So those of you who see this now online or will watch this later, please have a look and see if you don't have something interesting to propose, because you will also be able to. You don't have to go all the way to Iceland to present. You can also present on this conference remotely and virtually. So that was me, and thank you.
Thank you, Scully, for a very insightful presentation. We're looking forward to that event in Iceland in June. I think it bodes well for the future. Our next speaker needs no introduction to us, but I will introduce him to the other members of the online audience and the room. Alan Miller is here with us today in person from the University of St Andrews in Scotland. Alan has been involved in the use of virtual world technology in a culture heritage for over 10 years. He's a member of the Open Virtual Worlds Research Group at the University of St Andrews, and he's also the co-CEO of Smart History. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Miller.
Thank you very much for the invitation to come here. It's great to be here, and I'm very much looking forward to visiting Downpatrick Head again. What an inspirational place it is to be able to look out over the sea, over the landscape, and it kind of, to me, it epitomizes a combination of natural and cultural heritage. And I suppose in a lot of ways, it's engagement with that site and similar sites such as the one in Stratus cluster, which also brings together dramatic natural and cultural heritage, is one of the kind of inspirations that we have for trying to address this question, making virtual heritage real. I mean, I suppose the thing is that in the last 2 years, our engagement with heritage has been threatened. It's been made, lots of the ways in which we would, like in terms of visiting museums, visiting sites, going out, mixing with people, has been made in lots of ways a lot more difficult. And that's, I think, has helped really kind of pose this question, because at the same time as that has been happening, we've also seen the capabilities of digital devices. I mean, the technology that exists in this room alone, would be 10 years ago just wouldn't have been accessible, or just wouldn't have been available to use. And so I think that we're really finding that there's lots of possibilities and thinking about it. And so I just wanted to kind of look at a few issues, if that's okay. So the first would be consider heritage and society and digital. What's really going on there. What are the threats to our heritage and the opportunities that exist for addressing those with digital technologies, and then look a little bit more about what we can do and what the future might hold. This is I'm assuming you'll all recognise the C stack. I'm not going to try to pronounce its proper name, but I'll maybe throw that out to the audience. Could somebody pronounce it for me? Dumbrista. Thank you very much. That's appreciated. There's a little bit of story about this, because we didn't just turn up and do a photograph of it. There's a local company went out with the drones, and again, can we advertise the company that did the drone work? Well, yeah, okay. So it's a company that did the drone work, flew around, took lots of photographs, and then we took that and we wrapped it up into a virtual environment, making a 3D model out of it, which is then a platform which enables us to show this C stack in the context of medieval times, in the context of the Second World War, in the context of the history of the site going back through time, and we'll look at that in a while. And it also means that we can fly around it without actually having to physically go and fly around it, or we can virtually spend the night on the C stack, which is something that I understand has been done by people, but it's not an opportunity which exists in the real world for very much. So what I wanted to really sort of emphasize, which runs through all of the projects that we've been kind of talking about, is that they're all kind of concerned with heritage, with natural heritage, and with cultural heritage, with objects, with places. But why are we interested? Why are we interested in that? And I think that heritage it's about our history, but it's also contains within it a notion of community and a notion of ownership, and also of communication. It's about kind of defining who we are and passing that on to the next generation, who receives that heritage, but then is able to use that to kind of define who they are and imagine who they may want to be. And so I think that in terms of the European Union and the funding, we're doing this because we're interested in social inclusion. We're interested in people feeling part and parcel of a society. In order to do that, need to engage with the heritage and the history of society, of social cohesion, of communities being able to work together to achieve common goals. But also, I think often, one of the things that heritage does is it enables different communities to find what they've got in common with each other, and so reach out across borders and across barriers to find things that they are in common. So social cohesion in terms of community, but also on a wider scale, but also in terms of well-being. There's lots of things with virtual reality now showing that when people find it difficult to go out and to experience and to be stimulated, whether because they're infirm or aged or what, they have issues to come to terms with, virtual reality can act as a stimuli, can be a very good part and parcel of their lives and add new dimensions to people's lives. And then prosperity. I mean, I live in Scotland, and in Scotland, the North Coast 500 links together different heritage sites across the north of Scotland, and the experience of people coming to that and doing that has helped reinvigorate the region. And I believe you've had similar experiences here with the Wild Atlantic Way, attracting people in and helping provide stimulus to the economy and contributing to the prosperity. I mean, I guess that, I don't know, but I guess that there may be sort of mixed feelings about that. You know, new folk turning up, rocking up and going, oh, you know, tourists aren't necessarily always the most not always the most welcome word, is it? I mean, I suppose we could call ourselves visitors or whatever. So it's a kind of mixed thing, but that's I think is a good challenge to and issues to address. So for all of those reasons, we believe that heritage can play a really important role in society. But we've had lots of challenges. COVID-19's cut us off from heritage. There's conflict. We see that taking place in the Ukraine now, but we've also seen it in Palestine and Syria, Afghanistan, lots of places where there have been physical threats to heritage, and climate change, bringing erratic weather, threatening our heritage in different ways. And for all of these reasons, but at the same time as these threats, there's also lots of opportunities, I think. So one of the things is that of digital literacies, that you know, people are used to working in the digital domain, and the digital capabilities of what we can do in the digital world is becoming more. We can do more year in, year out with spending the same amount of money, using the same sort of computer, phone, or whatever. And that means that applying the digital to the heritage can help us achieve the social goals that we kind of like talked about. So we can do immersive heritage, you know, and which means that we can do virtual time travel, we can experience what the past was like. And this is one of the things that we've been trying to do, working with Downpatrick Head and other places. So this is an example of Scarpa Flow as well, which is a reconstruction of the Second World War. But I think that it might be nice to have a look at some of the work that we've done in Downpatrick Head. There are headsets, virtual reality headsets, that you can try on over there and put them on, and that puts you right in the middle of Downpatrick Head, you know, engaging with the myths, engaging with the historians, engaging with the Middle Ages and the Second World War. And I think, Catherine, there's a tour online that you can do. So it's kind of just a click away, and you can go and have a look at those, and look at some of the things that historians are saying, local historians are saying about, Seamus is saying about Downpatrick Head, and also see some of the images and some of the interpretation. So while we're sharing, so there's other examples that are similar. So there's do I need to do something then? You're not going to be able to speak. Okay. I can talk. I can try to talk. So yeah, this is on. If we go full screen, this is quite similar to what is in the app. It's a platform called Cooler, which uses a combination of different media. One of which is spherical media, And you can see we can look at the geology of the region, we can look at the mythology. We're going to get a great real world tour after this from a real expert on the subject. So I can just give a sketch. So 11th century settlement, medieval church, and the World War II. They're the main things that we're looking at. Maybe we can we listen to a bit of Seamus just now, maybe on the geology? So I guess it depends upon whether, okay, so we can hear all about the geology, but then when we click through, we can have a look at the site. This is actually a digital model of the site. Yeah, the visuals are good. And so yeah, this is a digital model which was made through photogrammetry and other things, which lets us do lots of interesting things with it. One of which is embedding information points and embedding some of the audio about the site, and then we can go and we can have a look at the. I think maybe have a look at the inside of a medieval church, because that isn't something that you can do when you go to the site today, but you can, because we're putting this onto a mobile phone and onto the headset, so you can have a go at later. So this is a model developed by my colleague Sarah Kennedy, but very much guided by historians from Seamus and others from here, and so we can see the inside of a medieval church, similar to that which may have existed on the site, and we can go around and we can have a look all the way around. That's great. And when we're wearing a headset, then we're right in the middle of it ourselves, so it gives a fully immersive experience, which can then be combined with audio and the like. And then let's have a look at the Second World War, maybe. You can go back and have a look at the Second World War. So this is the inside of the lookout tower, lookout, I suppose, hut, and then we can click through and we can find out more information about it. And what we very much hope is that whilst a lot of this information may already be available in books and the like, this brings it together. It makes it accessible, and we hope will introduce it to new generations, so that it will kind of renew the interest and the understanding in the history of the area. There's great interpretation on site, but this kind of adds a new dimension to that interpretation, and it also makes it accessible away from that site, using technologies that people are generally, young people coming through are generally familiar with and competent in. So that's some of the work that we've been doing with respect to the Downpatrick Head site, and this project and others doing similar in Iceland and in Scotland as well. So that is great. Thank you. Back to the PowerPoint. Thanks, Danny. That's lovely. And this is here is a similar tour, and that's with the for the West Highland Museum. And I don't know if you know, but there was a rebellion in the Highlands of Scotland in 1745, and this is a reconstruction of Fort William as it was when it was besieged by the Jacobites, along very similar themes, and in fact, in some ways, inspired by the work that we've been doing at Downpatrick Head as well. And this is an example from the Highlanders Museum for World War II. The World War II experience for a lot of Scottish soldiers was in prisoner of war camps, and this is bringing a prisoner of war camp experience. And this is actually in the virtual tour of Downpatrick Head. but we didn't focus on it. But this is a representation of the 11th century settlement at the time, and this kind of like brings out another aspect of heritage, because a lot of what I've been talking about is natural and cultural heritage from respect to places, but actually objects can be really important as gateways into the past, you know, imagining how they were used. And this is a part of a gallery that's part of a virtual museum, and it's representing an object that was discovered in the excavation in Skreda cluster, and so it forms part and parcel of the virtual museum experience, and actually is embedded in the reconstruction. So, you know, some archaeologist has gone out, has dug up the ground, has found this, has brought it out. Catherine has then photographed it lots of times with the guidance of Scully. We've made the architecture and the buildings, and then we've imported that in and placed it in the reconstruction. And over there, you'll be able to go and put on a headset and explore the reconstruction and be able to see this not in a gallery setting, but in the context that it would have been originally designed to have been in. So that's an interesting part of the heritage. And we will also see there's another cooler tour of Skreda cluster. And so this is one of the things that we're kind of like in this project really trying to do and to emphasize is not just to, well, is to enhance the experience of visiting heritage sites by providing digital interpretation and the like, but also connecting heritage sites together, connecting heritage together. And one of there's kind of like three ways in which we're doing that. One is through interactive maps. The second is through web virtual tours, and the third is through mobile virtual reality apps. And this here we see some different examples of heritage that is connected together. So these are specific sites on the Wild Atlantic Way, and we can go to this map and we can find interpretation and photospheres of these different sites. So you can just go to this one place and connect up these sites, and maybe you know, really mirroring the Wild Atlantic Way initiative plan to go and see and to visit multiple sites. And this is an example of reconstruction of Strath of Kildonan in the east coast of the north of in the north of Scotland, and within that it's another site which really demonstrates the history and demonstrates the natural beauty. And so we wanted to draw parallels between that and the Downpatrick Head. And one of the ways in which we're doing this is we have a system that you can log on to. You can go to a web page, download it, and then play a game, you know, from home. So here you can come in and play these games and do the exploration and have the immersive experience. But we're setting it up so you can go to the virtual museum, download your game, and then you can then explore it, but not explore it as an individual, but be able to book a time and a place to go and explore it when there'll be an expert that is in there with you, and you can do then a collaborative tour. So that may be a group of school students, or it may be a history society, can go into the reconstruction and experience it and get so here we see Jackie Aitken from the Timespan Museum. She's, you know, giving an interpretation and discussion of the reconstruction that she helped guide and to create. And in order to do that, we're able to leverage on open source and freely available platforms and open source and freely available technologies, which means that one, it helps keep the costs down. Two, it helps future-proof because it's open source. It's always going to be available. Nobody can take it away from us. And three, it means that the technologies are widely available, so we can collaborate with people who can also use those technologies and don't have to fork out thousands of pounds in order to get the specific platform that we're using for development. So we're trying to use open technologies to future-proof what we're doing and to underpin collaboration. So if somebody wants to pick up and start doing a reconstruction and contributing, then they can do so using similar technologies, using guides that we develop, and also making use of models and the like that we have helped and others have helped to develop. So it may be that, you know, we develop Gothic windows for a cathedral, but they may well be reusable in different contexts. So we're kind of looking for reuse along those lines. And what I wanted to, I think I'm kind of running out of time, but to say was that, you know, I'm really excited and enjoyed the technologies that we've been working with and the heritage that we've been working with here. And it's great to, you know, be able to put on the headsets and have the immersion and all of these things. But we need to bear in mind that when we're working in this domain, it's a changing playing field, that every year we get more advanced phones, every year we get new games come off, every year computers become more powerful. And this is a diagram showing how the capability of computing devices, you know, has changed between 1970 and 2020. And you can see it's almost a straight line in terms of the capability increasing. But if you look at the left, it's a log scale. So that means that in reality, there's an exponential increase. Every increase leads to a further increase based upon that which was previous. And so in reality, the graph is kind of shooting up like that. And what that means is that what we can do year on year changes. Okay, so maybe 10 years ago, the best we could manage was images and a sort of web-based virtual museum type thing. Now we can do games and we can do immersion and we can do virtual reality. And in a few years' time, we're going to be able to merge together the virtual reality and the real world to provide really engaging augmented reality experiences. So what this also means is that, you know, fortunately, our job is never done. You know, just because this year we've done stuff to do with heritage in the digital domain, you know, next year and the year after and the year after, the capabilities and the potential and the opportunities will have moved on, will have moved forward. And so there's a continuing challenge to be able to take advantage of those things. And at the same time, there's a real continual increase in the accessibility and the numbers of people who can access digital technologies. And so just to finish up on what Scully was mentioning before, we're really interested in building capacity, trying to build capacity, moving from the situation where virtual reality or digital domain stuff is owned by one or two prestige companies or one or two prestige projects in a country, and becomes part and parcel of what happens in heritage or what happens for museums. So we're interested in building capacity of communities, building capacity of museums and heritage organizations to be able to work in the digital domain, to be able to work with virtual museums, and that in virtual reality. And that means doing three things. It means working on knowledge exchange so that we can learn about heritage and about the skills that people are developing, but also we can share what skills we have with communities and with professionals. So it's knowledge exchange. The second is just an ongoing effort to create digital resources, digital models, digital representations that can then be used in multiple contexts. Can be used in a virtual museum, can be used in social media, can be used in an exhibit, can be used in a headset, but making and creating digital heritage resources. And the third is evaluating, making accessible and developing tools and infrastructure to support those two other efforts. And that's really the sort of idea behind this virtual museum in the north, creating an archive, collecting and creating digital resources to go in that archive, but then putting them out into galleries, putting them out into interactive maps, putting them out into mobile apps, putting them out into virtual reality contexts so that people have access to them using the digital literacies that are developing in society as a whole. So I think that what we want to do over the next 5 years is essentially to surf the changes in technology, to kind of capture the energy which exists in the digital domain and harness that to promote and to preserve cultural and digital heritage in ways that make our societies richer than they are, increase the inclusion and belonging to society, increase the cohesion and understanding, cohesion within communities and understanding between communities, make sure that we maximize the well-being that is available to us, and also build the prosperity of communities all the way across the EU and internationally. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan, for a very insightful presentation. It was remiss of me earlier when I introduced Alan not to have introduced Catherine Cassidy, who's here with us in person as well, from the University of St Andrews in Scotland. Catherine, together with Ian Oliver online, he's with us online from Scotland. Both have been instrumental in putting this together and have immense experience to this project and other projects we're working on. So we're grateful for their input into the technical side as well as other aspects of the project. Moving swiftly on, I'm going to introduce, I made apologies earlier for Joan Condell, who's not with us, but it'd be remiss of me not to give you some background on Joan's experience and the expertise that she also brings to the project. She's a professor working out of the School of Computing and Engineering and Intelligent Systems at Ulster University, focusing on data analytics, AI, and wearable ambient IoT sensors. She's a senior fellow at the Centre of Higher Education Research and Practice at Ulster University and a fellow of Higher Education Academy. Professor Condell has published over 250 papers and actively secured grants from external sources with a total project value of £34 million. Her research areas include imaging and digital intelligent technology in security, wearables, energy, and associated application areas. Joan is also being deputised today by Jorge Alvarez. He's a research assistant at the University of Ulster as well in Northern Ireland. Jorge has a background in IT and experience in multimedia and development. He's involved in other EU projects focusing on storytelling, culture and heritage, and how to promote the use of new technologies. I'm going to invite Jorge to join us now online to deputise on behalf of Joan. Jorge is coming from his home country in Spain, so we're reaping the rewards of a connected world here using technology. So Jorge, you're welcome, and I hope you can hear us okay.
Thanks, Danny. I'm hearing myself there. So I don't know if you can hear me okay. Okay. I'm going to talk about the Cine project as well. Scully already talked a little bit about it, but John wanted to briefly talk about the different projects that are related to cultural and natural heritage that Ulster universities or have been involved in. Well, the first one is Stratus, which has brought us all here today. The Cine project, which I'm going to talk about later on. Storytag, which is related to storytelling and mapping stories from the MPA area and promoting SMEs through those stories. And then we are working also on the 5 project, which we disclosed before, the Hive project. And lastly, Heater and Trailgazers, which is another cluster project. And the last one is about the use of sensors on trailwalks, I believe. And now, can I request control there, Danny? Yeah. Don't know if I can. No, can't seem to control the slides. If you don't mind doing it for me. Thank you. So the CNAI project was a collaborative digital heritage project between 9 partners and 10 associated partners from different countries like Norway, Iceland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland between 2017 and 2020. And some of them, like Scully and Aaron, are there today. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Here are some of the deliverables from the last period of the project. We had to develop a best practice guidelines for crop protection, online teaching resources, some mapping, heritage games. But sadly, due to COVID, some of them couldn't be completed. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the 2 case studies we conducted in Ireland. The first one was situated in County Donegal, in the town of Killybegs. It was once a medieval settlement and now one of the largest fishing ports in Ireland. It's home to St. Catherine's Church and its graveyard, and the original site dates back to the 15th century. Eventually, the church was abandoned in the 19th century. Next slide, please. So we work with the Killybegs Community and Heritage Society to virtually reconstruct the site as a 3D interpretation of the original structure. We used accessible digital tools like photogrammetry to capture and preserve and share the story of St. Catherine's with a regional and also a global audience. You can find more at virtualstcatherines.net, but I'll show you a little bit about it later on. Next slide, please. We faced some challenge during this case study. We found a very willing and committed community, but they were very, very busy, and so were we. So we didn't begin at the beginning. Next slide, please. So we decided to conduct a second case study on Inch Island this time. Inch is a small island in also County Donegal. It's about 13 square kilometers and it has a population of around 450 inhabitants. But this time we started in time and we appointed an experienced facilitator, Guy, who you can see there in the picture. Next one, please. So we called a meeting with the community of Inch in late January 2020. We didn't even know if anyone would turn up, but little by little, Inch Islanders popped up and we had a full house. Next one, please. During this meeting, Guy gave an engaging and inspiring talk, and the community were asked what they would like the project to be, because we wanted to make very clear that it would be their project as much as ours. So we listened to the people, we gathered photos, archives, and artifacts from them. Next slide, please. So what are the end results of these 2 case studies? Well, for Inch Island, our work had a clear goal. We were creating a virtual museum exhibit to reflect the heritage of the island. I don't know which versions of the slides we have there. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, this is the video I wanted to show you. I don't know if you can play it from there, Danny. Yeah, so we started with pages and pages of information, hundreds of images from the community and a good amount of oral stories as well. And after chatting about possible design for this, we realized that a timeline might be the best way of presenting Inch's history. So this is what we did with all the material. As you can see, it goes from pretty much the prehistory to nowadays. It's very complete. Thanks. So aside from that, a co-production guide was elaborated as a result of all the work that we did on Inch Island, and it's available as a PDF handbook and as a website. Co-production, we define it as the process by which we facilitate and empower the community, both individually and collectively, to become the curators, the makers, and performers of their own stories. Next slide, please. We also wanted to have everything in one place, so we created the Cine Communities website, where all resources and guides developed throughout the project are listed there. Can you go to the next slide, please? We have guides on co-production, gamification, audio recording, photogrammetry, etc. So, some of the digital outputs from this period were 3D models of different artifacts and buildings located in Kilobytes and Inch that can be found on Sketchfab. Next one. We set up a Flickr account for images from Inch as well, and gather a collection of 4 stories from Inch Island on SoundCloud. We created some interactive mapping as well, because mapping is also a vital tool in digital heritage. We can tell stories of natural and cultural heritage. They can be used to present a narrative of changing landscapes through history and time. It can also be used to document names and locations in local culture, or track where artifacts originated from and where they ended up. And some reflections after the project. We learned that co-production works. that digital technology can enhance our experience of heritage, especially for communities. We learned that we are not the only experts, not at all, and to keep it simple. Yeah. And lastly, we have to accept that the roads will be bumpy and the direction might change. That's why we decided to conduct the second case study as well. But the journey is as important as the end result. And that's it from me. Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful presentation and some very insightful information there, and some wonderful content to go with it as well. I particularly like the Donegal experience. It's kind of resonates with us here in Mayo, just down the coast. I'm going to maybe just conclude now by throwing it open to the floor here physically, and also to the online participants. If you have any questions that you want to direct to a specific speaker or otherwise, we will endeavour to get them answered. Absolutely, I'll throw it open to the floor now if anyone has any questions. And there's a roaming microphone here in the room for anyone who wishes to be heard worldwide at this stage. Just going to. Just get the microphone going here.
Sorry, Scully, I have a question for you in my worst Icelandic. Has the virtual reality at Stratus had an impact on tourism? Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Thank you. It was close enough for the pronunciation. And yes, I would definitely say that the virtual reality that we have now on display at Stratus has brought to us more attention, and it is well, the thing is that often when we talk about technology and visitors to museums, we often end up with, oh, this technology, why should we just do it? Because are we just doing it because of the technology? But that is actually not the case. We have to think about that the generations that are growing up now, they are digital generations. So their expectations are totally different from the others. So when they come to a museum, they have expectations to see something digital there. So when they come to Skriðuklaustur, they like it very much. So, and then the word spreads. So families come and they go into the virtual reality room there and have fun together, but at the same time they are of course learning about the story of the monastery, and we are giving them some education that otherwise would not be provided to them maybe. So it has had an impact on Skriðuklaustur and the cultural center as a tourist attraction, definitely.
Thank you, Scully. I'm just going to check with my tech colleagues on the right here if there's any questions from the online.
I suppose I have a question here for Alan. Alan, the Moore's Law slide that you showed was actually very good, and it demonstrated the exponential growth of compute power going forward, and we assume that that trajectory will follow through in the coming years. And then you stated that the future, that you can see a future where the virtual and reality world will merge. How do you think that will affect communities where these tourism destinations and cultural experience exist at the moment in reality? Will the virtual take over?
Will the virtual take over? No, I don't think so. I mean, I suppose the thing is that is this you know, the real world and the virtual world, right? There's these two things. And thinking about it makes a lot of sense to me, because like, when I was going to university or, growing up, there was no internet, there was no virtual world. And so when the sort of internet and virtual things come along, you think about, well, somebody you meet on the internet is a virtual friend, and then when you do things in digitals, it's a virtual museum and so on. But I think people who grow up now don't think that way. That there was a picture of the kid with the swiping on the tablet that was showed earlier on. People emerge into a world where there's physical things going on and there's digital things going on, at the same time. So it's all part and parcel of the same thing. And so I think that this term, virtual museum, which is one that I, use a lot, it will be an outdated one, because in terms of cultural heritage and museums, in the future, there's always going to be a digital element, and there's always going to be a physical element. The digital, when you're wearing your immersive headset and you're, or stood on the edge of a cliff. I think, Michelle, you kind of experience this. You kind of like feel as though you're going to fall over. So it can be a real strong immersive experience. But, at the end of the day, standing there and having the wind in your hair, being able to see with the clarity that you can see, a real world experience is can't really be beaten or can be matched by a virtual experience. So I don't think it's good to think about them as being in competition with each other, but they are able to do different things. So I came into this through the notion of experiential learning, that when you experience things, you learn really well. But there's only so many things that you can experience. You can experience Downpatrick Head as it is today, really by going there, and it's astounding, the views and all of that. You can't experience what it was like 500 years ago. You need digital help in order to be able to get that experience, in order to extend what can be experienced. So I think that the two things are complementary. I think that they will be less separate, they will be more together, they will be more complementary, not in competition, not one replacing the other, but the two complementing each other. At least I think that's what we should be aiming for.
Sorry, Alan, I might keep you there if you don't mind. There's a question from Christopher Parker, and I'm going to ask maybe you first, Alan, followed by Scully and Catherine, for their opinion. Could you give examples how the project has addressed climate change? Do you want me to come to Scully first? Give you a few minutes.
Yeah, if you can go.
They don't worry so much about the climate change in Scotland. No, but yeah, good question, Christopher. And of course, that is something that the NPA program is focusing very much on. And in this, well, in various projects that we have taken part of, and we have been telling you about here, climate change has been addressed in some ways, and actually in many ways. I mean, for example, I showed here earlier on what we had been collecting visual content from all the sites or the land and farms that the monastery owned in Iceland, and not least by the seaside. The climate change is of course having a lot of impact on the seashore in Iceland as elsewhere. So some of the ruins or remains that we have been making drone shots of in the last years in the Cine project and then in the Stratus project as well, they are actually at risk and are disappearing. So that is one of the things that relates to the climate change, that digital heritage can actually help us to preserve it, at least as in visual format, and also, of course, with laser scanning and photogrammetry in more three-dimensional images. Another thing that I want to mention is also that in the Stratus project and in the Sinna project in Iceland, we worked on the route that connected the valley of the monastery with the southeast coast, where actually the monastery owned one of the best harbors of the east part of Iceland in the 16th century. And today we have a huge glacier there in between us. It's 100 kilometers, a direct line there between the monastery and the fishing site. But we have but we are using the virtual reality actually to demonstrate how the glacier was smaller at that time, 500 years ago. And so there we can see the changes that the climate actually has on the landscape and on the vegetation there. So that is another example of how we're addressing the climate changes in the projects.
So thanks for the question, Christopher. We are worried about climate change in Scotland. I mean, I suppose the notion that global warming might be something that would be welcomed, but actually we're dependent upon the Gulf Stream or the North Atlantic Drift in order to give us temperate climates, and so if that is disrupted, we'll be looking at losing a lot of the warmth that we have in Scotland, and I guess here as well. So for those reasons, it's very important. But I suppose the other thing is that what climate change brings with it is the extreme fluctuations in weather, which is destructive. And so I think that there's kind of three aspects. So the first is just the process of digitization and recording and preservation provides some backstop against the destructive effects of climate change. But the second is we've been using virtual reality, one, to be able to visualize the past. So to be able to see the way in which climate has changed in the past, for example, creating digital models of Scotland as it was in the Ice Age based upon different research, so people can have an idea about how climate has changed over long periods of times. And also using virtual reality, both in the Sinna project and in this project and in related work, to visualize what the effects and what the impact of climate change would be. So, for example, Tensfield Forest is somewhere near where I live. So a student has created a visualization showing the flooding of that area, which would be the impact on climate change. So I suppose that sort of preservation that we talked about, but the raising awareness, so people think that climate change is going to be, by the year 2070, we're going to see a 3-inch rise in water, right? Or whatever that doesn't sound so terrible. But what we need to understand is that the fluctuations and the violence associated with those fluctuations in the climate is going to be tremendously destructive. And so anything which enables people to more greatly appreciate the heritage that we have now and value the heritage that we have now will act as motivation for people to act to reverse climate change and to address those things, and specifically being able to visualize what the impacts of climate change on will hopefully motivate people in those directions and therefore have an effect and an impact upon policy and policymakers.
Thank you, Alan and Scully, and thank you, Christopher, for the question. And I might add to that as well. And well, we've been portraying for the last hour and a half that virtual reality tells the story of the past, and I think Alan touched on it. Telling the story of the future might be just as important, particularly from a climate change perspective, and the coastal erosion that happens right across the western seaboard here in Ireland, none more so at Downpatrick Head, is evident there for hundreds of years. And Seamus Caulfield here with us tells that story wonderfully about the geomorphology of the headland. But I think there may be an opportunity here and beyond this project to tell the story of the future as well, and you know, look at the landscape and see what the landscape might look like in 100 years' time around the projections of coastal erosion and all of that stuff that's happening throughout the world. And there is an opportunity as well to promote and create awareness around that. And I think that's clever use of technology as well. But again, we mustn't lose sight of the past, but also I think we can't lose sight of the future either, because that's important. I don't know if there's any other questions that we're aware of. Yes, one question here in the audience. We'll get you a remote mic so you can be heard across the NPA region.
Hi, do you anticipate for the tourist coming to Downpatrick, will the technology be available at Downpatrick, or will it be bring your own VR kit?
I think that's the vision, yes. I think for many of you locally will know the success of Downpatrick Head in recent years, particularly on the back of the Wild Atlantic Way. I think absolutely that would be the vision. I think there'll also be opportunities through smartphones for those that might come, and there also could be an opportunity for augmented reality here as well. So you might actually rock up with your smartphone and be able to open the app and actually see what it looked like in the past, and be able to tell the stories we're trying to tell here in a virtual reality setting. Yes, I absolutely do think that's a wonderful prospect, and I think it has. There's great opportunity in that space. I do agree, and I think if Downpatrick Head is to continue to grow the way it has grown over the last number of years, then there's no reason why that shouldn't happen.
We have a few questions from Facebook live stream. Leslie Johnston would like to know how long an experience is your virtual reality designed for, or is it completely open-ended?
Alan, can I direct that one to you?
It's a very good question. What we try to do is to be able to organize things or present things so that you can have a good kind of 30-second experience, which will give you an introduction and be of value in itself. But then if you want to, you can then continue on for something that would last 3-4 minutes, because that's quite an accessible chunk of time. And then I think thirdly, we would then be looking at an experience that lasts 20 minutes or something like that, which is and then finally there would be the potential of several hours of engagement. So the 30-second might be a rolling video that you can look at, which gives you an introduction to the site. The 2 minutes might be something that we upload to YouTube, so a bit like hit single time, so you can see a video which lasts 2 or 3 minutes. The 5 or 10 minutes might be, the 20 minutes would be putting on the headset and exploring through all of the different things, or doing the full cooler tour, which is packaged. And then the several hours things would be more looking at a website, doing the archive, following links, sat down at home, being able to do those sorts of things.
This is not a question, but just to note from Mayo North Tourism that to all the team, an excellent presentation, great initiative, and they will be delighted to support the project in any way they can.
I think that's from Anne-Marie. Thanks, Anne-Marie. We'd be delighted to continue the engagement and get your insights as to the work we've done already. So we'd be happy to have you on board. And I think that's it on the question front. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the online part of today's event. I want to thank those that have joined us online from far and near. It is been, I have to say, it's been a successful event for us, and we're pleased with the engagement and the reach. We will break here in the room now for some refreshments, and we'll give people the opportunity to put on some Oculus headsets and take a tour of the virtual reality world. And thank you everyone for your engagement, and I'm grateful for all the support and help that we've got on the project to date, and the future is bright. Thank you.